This episode of Selling with Social is brought to you by the 10th Annual AAISP Leadership Summit, where the sales community comes together to learn, share, and network. Join Vengreso and your sales peers April 3rd through the 5th, 2018 in Chicago by visiting bit.ly/AAISP2018 and use the code LEADERSHIP1095 at registration. And now to Selling with Social.
This individual has been engaged with our service and finally turned into an opportunity, and it closed one customer in December of 2017. That lead that started all the way back in 2016, if it was done in traditional methodology today, never would have been a customer.
Hey y'all, welcome to Selling with Social, the podcast that helps marketers increase marketing qualified leads, sales reps to shatter sales results, and sales leaders to grow as leaders. Each show, we interview sales, marketing, and social media practitioners, leaders, and influencers to help you connect, close more deals, build stronger relationships with clients, and improve your sales productivity. I'm Mario Martinez Jr. You're now listening to Selling with Social. Erroin Martin, I am so excited, my friend, that we get to spend this time together on Selling with Social, the Vice President of Sales from Conversica. Thank you for joining me. It's been kind of hard to get you on the show here, my friend. You've been busy.
That's true. I've been traveling. I'm a wanted man.
Well, excited to have you here on the show. Do me a favor. We've got sales folks, we've got sales leadership, marketing, business owners listening in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little background about yourself.
Sure. I'll give sort of the DNA to the present, sort of approach, where I started from, where I was born, all that good stuff. Just kidding. So I have about close to 20 years of sales experience. I first got started in sales in Pfizer Pharmaceuticals as a field rep. Worked my way up to management and operations. From there, transitioned to exactly 90 days in advertising. And I realized that was not for me. And then I went into software sales, and I've been in software sales or startup life since 2007. So for about 11 years.
11 years. You've been living this startup life for a long time.
Correct.
And for those of you that can't see Erroin, I can see him. We're right here face to face, but you don't have any gray hair. And the problem is if you look at mine, I'm like almost fully gray. And I've only had 2 years of startup life.
Well, I got to tell you, it's all the drugs I took at Pfizer. It's just they're not worn off yet.
All right, there you go. Well, listen, I always ask our guests a question, and I want to know, tell us something that we would never be able to find out or know by looking at your social profiles about yourself.
Yeah, one thing that you would not know on my social profile, if you looked at me, is back in the day when I was in college, I did improvisational theater and stand-up.
Oh, all right. We're going to have a little bit of improv here on some comedy.
Never works funny during an interview.
All right. Well, feel free to bring some laughter to the show here.
I'll try.
What I'm most excited about, though, is, as you know, I've been tracking to this whole concept between digital and AI, and two worlds are meeting and coming together. And recently I had Paul Tashima, the CEO of Nudge, on our show, and we were talking a lot about artificial intelligence and how that can help a salesperson, a sales organization advance and grow. And, while we never have commercials here for any one company, Conversica has got me, I don't know, a little bit excited, just a little bit. Just a wee bit.
Yeah.
But I've been watching and listening and been spending some time with your leadership team, really understanding some of the cool things that you guys are doing. So do me a favor, tell us a little bit about Conversica. And I want to talk a little bit about how you guys are leveraging this from a sales tech stack perspective, because I think as listeners are listening in right now, every one of us are listening in and wondering, how can I grow sales quicker, faster, and better? And I think you guys have really caught on to something. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. And not to over commercialize what we do and spend the next, 45 minutes to an hour talking about how great Conversica is and why everyone should buy it, which you should.
So maybe, I
don't know. Maybe you don't want to. I understand. So, one of the biggest problems as you're trying to scale a company is getting your lead or the person you want to talk to engaged. And there's marketing automation, there's sales automation, They do a great job of driving that person to take an action. And then what happens next, right? Business card is given over to a rep loses the business card. List is uploaded into the marketing automation machine and it gets run through a drip campaign and no one does anything. So Conversica uses artificial intelligence to do two really fundamental things. One, to know when to engage the person and say the right thing. And the second piece is when the person responds back, interpret that response and make a consistent decision. And so when you're scaling a company, one of the biggest problems is you have a lot of turnover. Like you don't really kind of know what the right personality fit is. You're kind of testing, is it this type of kid? Is that type of adult? Those type of things. And now with Conversica, you've got a consistent sales assistant whose whole mission in life is to find out if that lead, contact, person you met at a trade show wants to talk to you or not. And if they do, passes it along. And if they don't, kick it back to whatever it is that you want to do with that person. So it's using AI to solve a real business problem for lots of different companies.
So you mean people can't see this right now, but I'm holding up a business card. Yeah. And I've got on this business card, this is what the front and back. And here it says hot lead. I don't even know what the date of this was. I know when I spoke to the guy because it was very intriguing, this conversation. So you mean the days of this, by the way, I feel horrible saying this because I'm a digital guy, but this was like 5 months ago. Right? So, and oh, by the way, hold on. So everybody can't see this right now, but what I'm doing is I'm holding up, Erroin, how thick is that? How many?
Oh, I would say that's about 3 inches business cards there. But
wait, here's stuff.
We got almost a foot long of business cards there.
I got about a foot worth of business cards.
And I noticed that both my business cards are bookends from when I started about 10 years ago or 20 years ago till now. You've got all my business cards.
Exactly. So, this has been an age-old problem that we all have, right? We're out at networking events. We get these items and we say hot lead on, and this is my best one. Here's a business card right here. Yeah. All it says is hot lead. What does it say on the back?
Nothing.
Yeah. Nothing. Right. The number one problem that we have at networking events or trade shows is we think of something and we scan someone's badge and we're on to the next person. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we're having a conversation in today's dial day. Right. And we're sitting there, we're pounding away on the phone and we're having conversations. We're like, shoot, what was I supposed to send to who and to when and to what? Right.
Yeah.
Or as you mentioned, the campaigns. And I'm going to use Vengreso. We're a massive lead magnet, right? We have 1,000 people coming in and submitting their stuff to us as a lead magnet. But I don't have a very good systematic way of being able to solve the problem of engaging with them because I just don't have enough time in the day, right? And there's not enough of us to be able to grow and scale. So help me understand, is this artificial intelligence? Is this a platform? Is this what are you guys doing to help me solve that big, giant sales problem that I have today?
Which is primarily, who to talk to, when to talk to them, if they want to talk to you, right? That's the biggest problem with all those leads.
And also follow-up, right? I've sent probably 3 emails to this person over the course of the last 5 months.
Yeah.
I have no idea whether or not he's read the message. And if I do, I'm getting in HubSpot an alert that says, open email message. But I get like 500 of them per day. What can I do with that? I just can't manage it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what we're doing is we're doing that follow-up for you over email and over text. And then we're reading the responses that come back and we're making a consistent decision. So a good example is we've got this lead in our own service. We went to Dreamforce, this is 2016. We did this whole thing where we were gold diggers. In fact, you can't see it in the audience, but I've got a sign behind me where it says we're gold diggers. If you were at Dreamforce, I was the bearded guy yelling at you probably. So this person is loaded in our system, came on one of the free days. So they're probably there for the tchotchkes. We don't know who they are. We're scanning badges left and right. And the system gets loaded into our platform. The AI starts to reach out. The first email comes back after a couple of attempts, I think maybe 3 or 4. The guy says, hey, now's not the time. Contact me in April. So this is 2016. He says, contact me in April 2017, right? In the real world, the chance of you, me, and a young SDR doing that is about 1 in an asteroid landing right now as we're having a conversation, right?
Exactly. We would have changed hands many times over.
Exactly. Yeah. Change hands back and forth many times, which actually happened to this guy in our own system. So what's cool about our system is the AI read that. The guy says, hey, contact me in April. So April 2017 rolls around. She reaches out and let's say Mario, as you said, hey Mario, you had said back in November you wanted me to talk to you now in April. Is now still a good time? And the guy responds back, you know what? Now's not a good time. Reach out to me in 6 months. So that's April, 6 months come around, October. The leads change owners numerous times. I've had people moving in and out of the organization and get promoted. And the AI reaches out again. And this time the guy says, you know what? I'm ready for a phone call. So from October of 2016 to October of 2017, this individual has been engaged with our service and finally turned into an opportunity, and it closed one customer in December of 2017. That lead that started all the way back in 2016, if it was done in traditional methodology today, never would have been a customer. Chances of that actually happening are very, very few. And I know there's salespeople out there that say, no, I'm really good. I follow up with everybody. And I know there's marketers out there that say, I've got the best sort of system in place. But let's be honest, you came in on a free badge when the unwashed masses come through Dreamforce. I guarantee you on a Gmail address, most of you guys would never score them higher than as 1 on a 100-point scale. You're not going to put activity on them. You're not going to put a human resource on them. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's what we provide.
And not just, not to mention that as a salesperson, how many times throughout the day do you get that pop-up window that pops up on Salesforce that's an alert that says, hey, you scheduled out whatever, a phone call to be made back on this day, and you got like 50 of them that all of a sudden pop up in one day. And what do? Oh, yeah. As a salesperson, I'm going to go through and I'm going to go call every one of those people, right?
No, we're going to pull the task out
and say, push them out another week, push them out, right? That's what we do.
So a funny story about that is like one time when I was a rep, I had this person say, hey, why don't you drop something on my calendar from 2 months from now and I'll have a conversation. And I did that. And then I got on and I totally forgot. And the alert pops up. I'm like, oh, I have a meeting. I don't even know like what the meeting's about. And I get on there. And the person and I are both on. And the actually person got on the meeting, which is surprising. And he gets on there and he's like, why are we here? I'm like, that's a great question. Why are we here? Are you here to sell me something? I think so. Are you here to buy something? He's like, no. Then why are we having the meeting? So it's like that type of thing. We prevent that from happening because we will know if that person wants to have the call. And so then your question is like, okay, well, what is AI? AI is a big, ambiguous term that means lots of things. In the end all, artificial intelligence is nothing more than a series of statistical algorithms that self-learn, that have a probability factor to take an action. And so AI can diagnose lung cancer better than the human eye can because it has more data in it to get it statistically correct than a doctor trained over X amount of years. AI can get the best shade of red on a car better than the human eye can because it's trained with all that type of statistical information to find the best color red. And one of the hardest things to do in AI is actual natural language processing, which is the core of what we do. And the reason why it's hard is because the intent behind verbiage and how many times you misread an email or you thought you were saying a joke on text and someone took it completely the wrong way. You spent 2 hours like trying to dig yourself out of a hole is because it's really hard to do. And so we've trained our AI with a pretty strong confidence interval to recognize when someone's interested and want to take a next step or if someone's not interested. And that alleviates a lot of pressure off of the team and that helps organizations scale. And we use it internally. And so we can speak very intelligently of how to deploy the service because we understand how to do it. But again, don't want to turn this into a commercial, but you and I will take a break and we'll show all the people who've been successful with Conversica, how they started in a trailer park and now they're living in mansions and now they're swapping houses and flipping buildings, all that good stuff.
No, well, and it's okay. I mean, I took you down this path here for our listeners, right? I mean, this is not about a commercial for Conversica or Mario's super passionate excitement about AI, but this is really about fundamentals that we have, basic problems that each one of us have, right? The ability to follow up at the right time, at the right place.
Yeah.
The ability to follow through with the follow-up at the right time.
Correct.
Pace. And then at the pace of which we continue to engage, right? And I think the statistics show that after 2 attempts, no response, what do most people do? They walk away and they move on, right?
Exactly.
So, these are some basic fundamental problems that you guys are bringing from a technology standpoint. But you've grown your sales organization fairly significant. If I'm not mistaken, you were actually one of the first ones there at Conversica, right?
Yep, one of the first ones.
Yeah. So you've grown the sales organization now, and it's grown by, 25x from when you started.
Yeah.
A great organization. And is it all about, from a sales tech stack, for those that are listening in, you guys are clearly a front runner when it comes to sales technology. There are over 700 different sales tech stack providers that are out there today, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Conversica being one of them. Talk to me a little bit about what are the types of tools that a sales organization needs in order to be able to grow their sales revenue?
So I think what a sales organization needs, or any organization, when they looks at its sales functionality, they need tools that root out inefficiencies in the sales process. wherever you have an inefficiency, you've got pipeline leakage, opportunity costs that are now sunk and never returned. You've got lost deals that you could have won, and you've got inefficient, or as we say here, not ramped enough, account executives and SDRs, et cetera. So it starts with a sort of a soup to nuts process. So we follow sort of that predictive revenue model. We break sales down into sales development, the account executive function, and then the account management function. So the life cycle, the customer gets prospected or comes as an inbound, gets qualified, gets passed to an account executive who runs the sales cycle, who closes that sale, then passes that on to the account manager who then manages and farms that account, et cetera.
All right, hold on. Let me go back to this one. So you said, what are the phases that how you define the sales process? Sales development.
Sales development. So sales development is, that's someone who's going to be outbounding, cold calling, and prospecting into accounts, or qualifying and screening inbound accounts. Now we use our AI to do the email. The inbound team works primarily phone. If someone is good enough to get a set for a meeting with my account executives, then the account executive will do the meeting, they'll do the discovery. And if the person's qualified, they'll put them into a sales cycle and they'll do everything to obviously try to close and win that sale. If the sale is then won, my account executives then hand off that account to the account manager. We call them customer success managers here at Conversica. And that job of that person is obviously to make sure the customer's happy, make sure that they understand how to use the platform, and then their job obviously to find opportunities to expand the products. We don't deploy you don't get all of our full services we deploy. We actually do sort of a land and expand strategy in all of our accounts.
So I think that's very typical. Before we go into the tech stack here, very typical. Sales development, outbound, inbound, move on. If something's a hit, there's a bite, move on to an AE to create the discussion. You close the deal, you move it on to the CSM.
Yeah.
Very typical. And I cut you off actually, and I apologize. You were about to start going into the sales tech stack. But before you go into the tech stack and start talking about that, I want to take one short break and listen to this message from our program sponsor. I'm super excited to share that Vengreso will be joining the AAISP and hundreds of sales leaders in Chicago for the 10th annual AAISP Leadership Summit, April 3rd through the 5th, 2018. In fact, I personally will be presenting, and I want to invite you to join me. The Leadership Summit brings together sales leaders from around the globe for a learning experience unlike any other. Attendees will find workshops, group learning, a technology expo packed full of today's leading solution and service providers, and of course, the infamous annual Inside Sales Award Gala. To receive your deeply discounted rate, visit bit.ly/AAISP2018. That's bit.ly/AAISP2018 and use the code leadership1095 at registration for an amazing Vengreso only discount. So before we left, we defined your guys' sales process, sales development, account executives, CSM, and I cut you off. And you were right on the lines of moving into talking about sales tech stack and leveraging tools. And I think I heard you say this to drive out inefficiencies in the sales process.
Yeah. So if we go back to that process, right? So the reason why that process is broken down, if you think about it, if you ever read Aaron Ross's book about the predictable revenue, it's inefficient for person to be a soup to nuts salesperson. So when I think back to my days when I first started in technology, I worked for a very small document control system, a company called Mystic Management Systems. I think now they're called Doc Excellence. I was the VP of sales for that team, and we did everything. We prospected, we did demos, we ran sales cycles, and we were also the account managers. The problem is like, if you want to have a hunter organization, they can't do account management because that eats up a lot of time. And if you want a farming organization, you can't do hunting because that eats up a lot of time. So it makes sense to break down those roles. But when you break down those roles, you start to create other inefficiencies. So typical SaaS company in the Bay Area here, and actually pretty much like in New York and Texas and those places, the sales development role has now become the first point of entry for someone in their professional sales career. They start out as sales development. All right, if they can make the cold calls and get beaten up by the prospects who hate everybody cold calling them, then they can make it to the next level. Well, you got a 22, 23, 24-year-old kid who's your first customer contact, and they don't really know a lot, and they're going to follow your rules. Well, they're not going to do things on their own and be, for the vast majority of them. So you now create an inefficiency where they're not doing enough phone calls, not enough touches. The length of the phone calls are too long, too short. So you want to automate that so that all they need to go in is just focus on their day and watch their lane. So for us, we use SalesLoft as our sales acceleration tool for our outbound team. And then what we use for our inbound is we use our own tool for inbound communication, which is Rachel, which is our AI sales assistant. That's great. That creates a wonderful sort of pathway. You can put in things in place to get the right customer. You can record phone calls. Then the next step comes into, all right, you get that in place. Now you're feeding a funnel to your account executive team. So the account executive team, they don't really necessarily need to do a lot of cadence driven or automated sort of sequences. They may need a playbook or an automated playbook to kind of, if this happens, do that type of thing. That you can build through a learning management solution or, through other tools that are out there. What they need to also do is be able to record calls correctly, to see the process back and forth. A lot of times they live in the inbox because they're doing lots of emails. So they need a tool that, if I'm talking to you, Mario, your face pops up, your title, are you in an active opportunity with me through Salesforce? Are you in, do you have the right contact information, et cetera? The tool we use is Salesforce Inbox, and then it has a great app on the phone. All that ties in and records activity history back into Salesforce. I can pull up information about you from Salesforce and into my Gmail account, which is what we use it on as our platform. And I have all that stuff sort of there. Then the next part of the puzzle is, okay, as I scale my team, when I first started, it was me, then it was another person, then a few other people. I could sit on phone calls. I can coach them. We could listen to calls on the floor. I can coach them right then and there. Once I went up to 10, 12 account executives, that becomes much harder, much faster. Plus, my time is now I'm doing meetings with marketing. I'm doing meetings with customer success. I'm on a trade show. Last week we had to cancel because I was flying to New York. All that type of stuff. I can't be in the room with my rep and be on a field ride, as I like to call it. So we use Chorus, another AI tool, to do live in real-time transcripts.
Yep.
I can read it. My reps can say, hey, I had a question from a customer here. I don't think I handled it correctly. They can send me a clip. I can listen to it. I can read the transcript in that app. I can email back to them or chat back to them. Yep, you did a good job. No, you talked too long on that subjection. No, you said the wrong thing. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So,
Why did you say that?
Exactly. Oh my God.
Never say that again.
Yeah, exactly. Were you asleep? I think I heard the prospect. You talked too much. The prospect wanted to hang themselves. All that good stuff. And they're able to record the screen share as well too. So I actually can see in real time where the person is, where they're having that conversation on the screen share. That's helped me do so many amazing things. It's helped me coach my team directly. All my customer success managers have access to all the recordings, so they know if the customer says, "Oh, Joe promised me." 3 months free, they can go back and listen to the recording and see if Joe actually did promise them or not. They won't call the customer out on it, but they know what the truth is. Yeah. And for my upcoming sales development reps who want to get promoted, they get to hear what success looks like. So now I'm building a funnel of internal candidates who know what we're looking for, maybe, and they'll also be able to hear why I called an opportunity didn't qualify, et cetera. And then the last piece of the puzzle for me and what we're looking at is really automating and then being able to predict very effectively my pipeline. In Salesforce, I know is trying very hard with Einstein. We've actually beta tested that a little bit as well too. A lot of great information lives in Salesforce. When you're just using Salesforce by itself, it doesn't really make sense how to get all that information out. So we use a tool called TopOps. There's a competitor called Clary. They both kind of do that, or Data Hug or Insight Square. They do the same thing. They pull all that information out, do a visualization for you for the sales leader, and they all give you trends. And in one location, my reps can manage their pipeline. I can harass them about their pipeline. We do forecast meetings, one-on-one meetings. It's all right there. And I instituted that last year. That alone helped increase our sales by, I think, 50 to 60% because we had a lot more visibility in the pipeline. And I was able to really weed stuff out and tighten up the pipe.
I love the way you broke that down in terms of the different steps, right? The outbound, the inbound, the AEs, and needing playbooks as an example, being able to have the knowledge right there in one central location from a tool, Salesforce Inbox, being able to actually coach based upon actual conversations, and then also inspecting and doing the litmus test against the forecast, right, with some of the tools. But it seems to me that there's one thing that may be missing, and I don't know if you have a solution for this, or maybe you do have a solution for this, but is there any type of technology that you guys are utilizing or training that you guys have had that helps me as a salesperson before I go to engage with a buyer to know what type of buyer is this person? What do they like to know? How should I speak to them? Should I say, by the way, I've turned off people because every message I write is, hey, Erroin. And some people don't like the word, hey, right? Because it sounds way too informal. You don't know me. You can't talk to me like that, right? But that is me. And if, by the way, I turned you off, I'm sorry, you probably wouldn't have bought from me anyways, right? But if I was smarter potentially in terms of my engagement with knowing what to say or how you might be, or maybe, understanding your personality, your profiling, so I can say the right things. Is there anything that you guys have done in that particular space there?
Yeah, so there's two tools that we add for that as well. And I forgot to mention, we use Sales Navigator by LinkedIn, which is now, if you don't have that, you don't have a modern sales tech stack, or you don't have the foundation for one. And then on top of that,
you aren't one.
That's exactly right. Exactly. Or I've got some things I like to sell you on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got some consulting work I can do for you.
Or you could hire Vengreso.
Exactly. And I know someone who works there.
Right.
I get you a discount. Talk to me later.
There you go. I totally took you off path there.
That's fine. We use a product called Crystal Knows. And so one of the cool things we do here at Conversica is we test other AI products. So like Chorus is an AI product. TopOps, Clary, they kind of use AI to predict things out. Crystal Knows looks at your social profile, primarily LinkedIn, your Facebook stuff. The more social footprint you have, the more information it has. I can even copy emails and put it into it, and it'll give me your type of profile, how you like to be spoken to. And so now it uses DISC, and there's people who like Myers-Briggs and all that type of stuff. I did a lot of DISC training when I was at Pfizer, so I really can't help myself. I'm sort of tied to it. It has helped me. Like you said, people don't like Hey. Some people just like Mario, It has helped me craft better emails and responding back to individuals. It has told me like, hey, you're putting way too much information, just get to the point. And it sits in your Gmail box and it sits on LinkedIn. It's helped me match up effectively with my prospect. So if in DISC, if you guys know what DISC is, like D is like the driver, I, S, and C, a good sort of challenger salesperson or a good, really great salesperson, they kind of float in between all the four quadrants. So they're usually stronger in another one. And that's what it boils down to then is like, okay, I have all this technology to help me automate and remove the efficiencies. And the reason why I'm moving the efficiencies is one, to streamline the process, but two, to hire a rep or have a rep to really think, to have some emotion behind the sales process and really try to understand the buyer. And the only way you can understand a buyer or your customer is be able to talk like the buyer talks, right? So like Mario, if you and I are talking and we're talking about the problem of a startup life, hey, I've been there, you're 2 years in, you used to have the long black hair, it's all white now because of it. Or you used to work in insurance and I know nothing of insurance. Like I can't speak your business language, but if I know how to speak to you and how you like to be spoken to, you're going to open up to me. You're going to tell me more about your real problems, the underlying worries that you have, et cetera. And so we use that in writing emails. I use that in training. We'll pull up the profile and, Crystal Knows will give you an accuracy rating of what they think the person is. If it's above 86%, it's pretty much accurate, spot on.
You've said some really amazing nuggets here. And it's just so spot on, Erroin. You talked about, we've been spending a lot of time talking about the tools in the tech stack. And I appreciate you sharing your tech stack because I think a lot of folks that are listening in are trying to figure out what the heck do I buy? There's 700, where do I focus on? And I love the strategy that you laid out, which is, outbound, inbound. Here's what you got, right? AEs and creating conversations and having knowledge. And then you talked about, the whole coaching model and then, forecasting, right? So it's a great strategy. And then tying this in, I'm glad to know that you use Crystal Knows. I love Crystal Knows. It's freaking amazing, right? Yeah. And by the way, it works within LinkedIn, which is I don't know how they got permission to do that. Yeah. but nonetheless, it is. And the fact that you said Sales Navigator, hallelujah, that's part of our bread and butter, right? But you said something specifically, which is the tools are designed to rout out the ineffectiveness in the sales process. But what can't be taken away is that we become so automated, right? And so driven to a process that we forget the emotion that goes behind developing a relationship. Mm-hmm. A great example of that. I literally, before getting on this call, almost blew a gasket because I saw an email that came back from our sales development team that sent a message out to a potential buyer. And it addressed them in the very first email. It said, hello, first name. Yeah. And then they responded with, here's what I'm looking for. And they wrote a response back without even addressing the person by their name. Right. Mm-hmm. Now, did it lose a deal? Well, we haven't got a response yet and it's been 2 weeks. Right. Yeah. So, but the point is that we weren't there yet in the relationship for me to write a message back that didn't have a greeting. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. And that's the point. With all these tools that we have are designed to help us and speed up the process. But the biggest thing that we forget is all things being equal, all things being unequal in the sales process, it's you that's the differentiator, right? Mm-hmm. So a tool like Crystal Knows, it's great to know that even the AI company like Conversica are utilizing tools, albeit artificial intelligence with Crystal Knows behind the scenes, right? You're utilizing these tools to be able to help you develop that emotional connection to your buyer and talk to the buyer the way the buyer wants to be spoken to. And I think a lot of people, when they think about AI, and like this guy, I just hate the concept of using the word AI because it's so generic and it's like, what the heck does it really mean? But in the context of what we're talking about here, in terms of using tools to rat out the ineffectiveness, that you guys, you yourselves are not sitting behind just a machine, right?
Yeah.
You recognize, you realize, and you're still advocating that you need salespeople to be involved in the process. Would you agree?
I totally agree. In our customer base that we have over 1,200 customers. We grow salespeople. We don't take away sales jobs. We increase sales jobs for over 50% of our customers. And the other ones, they just keep the team that they have. So it's not the fear. I mean, will there be some jobs replaced by automation, artificial intelligence? Absolutely, yes. If I can have a system read X-rays and CAT scans better than a radiologist on what they call Nighthawks on a night shift, that makes determination I'm going to have surgery, chemotherapy, or none of the above. I'd rather have that than the Nighthawk who pulled a ship to the hospital and is doing this to collect extra money. Man, it sounds really bad, but I would trust the machine.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a story. I was reaching out to a partner and a client, and he responded back with, "Hey, Amanda, will you do me a favor? Will you, please help me arrange a meeting with Mario?" And so we went through a couple rounds of messaging. And one of the messages I sent her, I said, well, she says, when are you available? And I said, well, here's a couple of times, but so that we don't have to play email schedule volleyball, here's my calendar link that I'll send you, and just click on that and you can book a meeting there. And then she responded back with, "I'm sorry, I'm not able to click out to outside links, unfortunately. So here are some additional dates and times." And I got the message back and I thought, well, that's kind of odd. She must be like in the Philippines or in India or something like, why would the company prevent them from getting to the outside world? I mean, don't we have filters? Anyways, come to find out, went a couple more rounds. And it turns out when I got on the phone, I did ask the question. I said, where's your assistant at? And he said, well, truth be told, it's my new artificial intelligent personal assistant, right? And I was like, oh, I was talking to a bot. I had no idea. So, which was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see something like that. But the human element is so important because it made me say, am I talking to a real person, or where's this person at? It didn't even dawn on me that it actually was a bot, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's really good. That's very good. That's good.
Yeah. So any case, I know, this is important for you guys because you recognize that it still requires a human element. And it really goes into what we would talk about as the emotional intelligence of a sales team, right?
Yep.
And the fact that you're trying to you tell me, are you trying to instill some sort of sales EQ, if you would, right, into your sales teams? Or actually, before you answer that question, what's the average age of your guys' sales team as a startup company?
My average age of my sales team is about 30 years. 30 years old. I've got a lot of millennials and generation below millennials.
Yeah. What is that generation called?
Generation unknown.
There we go. We'll do generation unknown. It's a lot of millennials. All right. So you're living the life of what everybody talks about in terms of quote unquote the millennials.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how you're driving relationship building concepts and EQ into the sales process.
Yeah. So being a non-millennial of a generation not to be told, but slightly older, first off, I think every generation wants to be sort of handled the same way. There's just different ways of doing it. Like kind of like people want to talk to in the same sort of like for like. So, people want recognition, whether you're a baby boomer all the way down to something completely different. And for me, what I'm trying to get my millennials to understand, one is put the phone down in the meeting, and two, don't joke with your phone in the meeting, is, buying is all about personal relationships. People buy from people. At the end of the day, every purchase decision, whether it's with your own money or with the company's money, is an emotional decision. You've got to walk that person through the different stage of emotional change. And you have to have an emotional connection with that person on some level for them to trust you, respect you, develop a relationship with you, and ultimately buy from you. So what I've been training my millennial team is what I call emphatic curiosity. So there's different ways to ask questions. And a little known secret of my background is I used to, for my professional career, I was a military intelligence officer, and I did human intelligence, which is what it says. And a way to get through to talk to somebody, and I learned that way back then, is if you build an emotional connection with somebody, if they know that you feel what they're going through, they will trust you. They'll do things for you if you need them to. And so developing emphatic curiosity is not just asking questions because it's on our discovery checklist that we need to know. It's asking that question in such a way that gets the business owner or the champion at your account to open up and tell you what's the real problem. What do they really care about? And not only that, but then have the awareness to knows every time that you're asking something from your prospect or your customer, if you don't give anything in return, you're just taking. The team at Topo talks about providing value so you can have an ask. I talk about providing connection, providing empathy so you can have an ask. So, Mario, you and I are getting along. We're having a great time. If we probably can have a good drinks and have a great conversation. At a certain point, you're going to ask me, "Hey, can I be a customer of yours?" I'm like, "Hey, you want to be a customer of ours?" But we can have that conversation because we've earned that right, because we've built up that emotional connection, even on a business relationship level, that we trust each other. And a lot of times, in a lot of different companies, especially here in the Bay Area, they're very programmatic. They've done a great process. They've got a great program. But the rep is tone deaf. And I know, because I get prospected too. Like, people want to sell me stuff, and I've got money to spend, and I do a round raise. Like, great, you read my LinkedIn profile. Congratulations, you saw what I've done. So what? There's more to it, that there's more of a story in there. And when you're talking to me, do you know what my concerns are? Do you know what the problems are of a Series B, going to a Series C? Have you been in those problems before? Yeah. Do you know what it's like to take a team from 3 to 6 to 25? And what that growth means, and how different clicks build out, and then how different sort of what becomes sort of quote unquote tribal knowledge is because I did something because I needed to fix something, and now that's the way it's always been. It's kind of fun to watch, actually, and hear the stories that spin up about it. But all those things are incredibly important, and all those have an emotional connection. So like when we're talking to sales leaders who've built up this entire awesome process, and they use outreach or they use sales law, well, that guy's got emotional pride built in that process. I'm not going to challenge them on that. I'm going to lose. Yeah. But if I can get him to say, "Hey, what you've done is really important," and I can ask in an emphatic way, like, "Hey, not what keeps you up at night, but when you look at all this stuff and you're still not hitting your number, what do you want to do? What do you think is wrong?" And I might not be the right person for you, but I could be. If I'm not, then I'll help you find the right person for you. And if I am, then let's have that conversation. And if it's affordable, let's go ahead and do it. And if it's not, let's find out if we can find a meeting ground to help you help yourself.
Are you, though, effectively training the sales team to say, "Hey, we're not the right fit. We're not the right solution"? Because that's really hard for most salespeople. Like, we're always trying to fit that round peg sometimes into the square hole. Is that the square peg into the round hole? There we go. That's the right phrase.
Well, sometimes it's a round hole and a round peg. You just have either the wrong hole or the wrong peg. So
there you go.
I get where you're coming from.
So is it easy? I mean, have you been able to successfully do that?
So the answer is yes. The answer is no. Right? Yeah. So the answer is yes, because we've grown now to a point where we know there are certain customers that just aren't right for us. And we know there's certain customers that we just don't service very well. So we'll be upfront and honest with them. Like, "Hey, we'll try it, but I guarantee you, this has not worked. If you want to spend your money, I'll help you part with your cash, but I don't really think it's in your best interest." When you're in a startup in the very beginning, the business problem. You think you have the right customer. So you're going to take money from anybody, and you're going to try to promise the world to everyone, because you still need to kind of find out what's the right fit. Once you find that right stride and you start earning results from that stride, then the answer is it's better to be a mile deep and an inch wide than an inch wide and a mile deep. And one of the best things I've had in my career that's helped me see that is I launched over 14 novel compounds when I was with Pfizer. And some of them started with a mile wide and inch deep philosophy. Others started with a mile deep, inch wide philosophy. It was always the latter was the most successful. Turning away a patient that wasn't right for the product was better in the long term than trying to get, quote unquote, that quota relief. Same thing in SaaS sales. Not everything needs a hammer. Not every company is quite ready for artificial intelligence just yet, which they were. My CEO probably is going to hear this. I'd probably be out of a job in 2 days. But my VP of customer success will be, "Damn right, tell them it's straight. I don't want anything that's going to churn." Right. Yeah. And as a business owner, as a salesperson, yes, I've got to find a way to hit my number. I just can't take everything, because I may hit my number this month and then I have the pain of clawbacks the next month because they're not great customers.
Absolutely correct.
And if you have the emotional intelligence to really have that heart-to-heart conversation, what we've seen when we've employed this over the last year is our average sales price has gone up 136%, and our deals have stayed longer, and we have net negative churn as an organization.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
136% growth in deal size.
Yeah.
Deals are staying longer.
Yeah.
And negative net churn.
Correct.
That's, for those of you that aren't seeing me, that's the sign for goal, right? That's the goal sign right there for any type of venture capital firm to be able to go Series C and D and everything else beyond from a perspective. Fantastic, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed this particular conversation, because you're really hitting on a lot of areas and challenges that the everyday sales team is challenged by. And I love what you said, that, tools are designed, you want to use tools to route out the ineffectiveness in the sales process. But at the end of the day, it still requires a human touch and element. Like, that's one of the things. And we know that. The question is you've laid out a great strategy in terms of how do you lay out the tools at the right place at the right time in the 6 different places that you mentioned. I mean, that's freaking awesome. But do me a favor, Erroin, if someone wants to get a hold of you, if they're interested, is it a LinkedIn message? Is it a Twitter? Do you have a Twitter handle? How do they get a hold of you?
So I have many different means to get a hold of. So my Twitter handle is my first name @Erroin. It's ERROIN. LinkedIn message is always best. I'm a lion on LinkedIn. So that means I'm a LinkedIn open networker, which means I have to accept all things. No, I'll accept it. I do actually answer LinkedIn messages, pretty responsive to those. I don't like to have that badge on the thing. And of course, you can always email me at my corporate email address, Erroin M, that's ERROINM as in Mike, @Conversica.com, CONVERSICA.com. And you will get a human response back. Rachel, if you get an email from Rachel, that's because that means I don't want to talk to you and I want my AI to talk to you instead.
I love it. And do me a favor. I always ask this parting question to all of my guests. Your all-time favorite movie ever. What is it?
Okay. And I define an all-time favorite movie as in, if it's on TV and you're flipping through the channels, it doesn't matter what scene it is, you will stop and finish the movie. It could be at the end scene, the beginning, and the middle. I love it to death. People think it's Star Wars because I grew up as a Star Wars fan, but it's not. It is Big Trouble in Little China with Kurt Russell. I don't know what it is about that movie, but I love it to death.
Oh, especially when the bad guys explode themselves.
Yes. And I will say quotes from that movie to my reps. None of them know exactly anything what it means, but I laugh to myself inside all the time.
Big Trouble, Little China. I know it. It's actually still scary. I wouldn't let my kids watch it today, but it's pretty scary. Well, listen, you've been a fantastic guest. I appreciate you joining me here on Selling with Social. And for those of you listening in, take a listen to this final message. Don't forget to join Vengreso and hundreds of sales leaders from around the globe, April 3rd through the 5th, 2018 in Chicago for the 10th annual AAISP Leadership Summit. To receive your deeply discounted rate, visit bit.ly/AAISP 2018. That's bit.ly/AAISP 2018. And use the code LEADERSHIP1095 at registration for an amazing Vengreso-only discount. Thanks so much for joining me on that episode of Selling with Social. I hope you found as much value in that episode as I did. Here's what I want you to do next. Please go to www.vengreso.com. That's VENGRESO.com. VENGRESO.com. And make sure that you get access to our content. We've got the latest and greatest in digital sales, sales training, content marketing, and social selling strategies that are going to help you grow your sales pipeline. I look forward to having you on the next show of Selling with Social. Make sure you also go to vengreso.com/podcast to be able to get access to the latest and greatest Selling with Social episodes, along with any of the other episodes that we've got from Social Business Engines with my friend and partner, Bernie Borges. Thanks again for joining on Selling with Social.